Brewster's has it all. Look at this. You want a good steak from the T-bone to the filet? Oh my, the burgers are outstanding. You name it, they've got it. Salads are great too. Atmosphere is great. The people are even better at Brewster's here on Judge Prez Drive in Chalmette. So glad you've joined us for this special edition of sportsNOLAtv from Brewster's, and a pleasant good evening to you. Ken Trahan of sportsNOLA.com, and welcome one and all. Today, we'll be talking about LSU, Alabama. Who's not? We'll certainly do so extensively and show you highlights. Also, a preview of what's to come the second half of the New Orleans Saints, and a review of what's happened with the first half of the season with grades, Tulane, prep, and more, as well as the New Orleans Hornets. Breaking it down per usual, our regulars from sportsNOLA.com, Brian Allee-Walsh. Brian, good evening.
Kenny, thanks. Always a pleasure to be here. What a great sports weekend, and we're going to cap it all off with the Eagles-Saints game tonight at the Superdome. Love it.
Torrance Small, former New Orleans Saints wide receiver par excellence. Great to have you as always.
We're glad to be back again, Kenny. And I'd like to send a shout out to my little football team, 9 and 10, Mus Bertolino. We didn't win the championship, but we made it there 5 years in a row, guys. I'm proud of you. Keep your head up. Plenty more to come.
The Hornets. Way to go. And our special guest here today from sportsNOLA.com, WGSO 990 AM. Of course, the coach returning to his roots because he coached in Chalmette about 80 years ago. Rick Gaille. Rick, great to have you with us.
That's right. Long time ago in a place far, far away. And it's gotten much closer since then. But they actually have a 4-lane highway now.
That's awesome.
Back in the day, but it was a tough weekend with both Tulane and LSU losing close games in two very different ways. And an important game tonight, as we've already mentioned, with the Saints and the Eagles. Plenty of video to look over, plenty of analysis.
Yep, and of course the Saints coming up in just a little bit in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome against the Eagles. And this is, of course, their last hurrah of sorts if they want to harbor any hopes of a winning season or playoff berth. And we'll get into that, among other things. Of course, as mentioned, still a lot of buzz from LSU and Alabama. We'll talk about that extensively. Tulane, prep, the Hornets, you got it. All of that to come with great food and more from Brewster's. It's Sports NOLA TV. I'm Ken Trahan, and we're back in just a moment to break down the Tigers and the Tide here on Sports NOLA TV on WHNO Channel 20. Ken Trahan, Sports NOLA TV. LSU, Alabama was the focal point of the nation this past Saturday night, and why not? It was a feverish night, over 92,000 at Tiger Stadium. Les Miles leading his team on the field. He did a pretty good job of keeping up with him. Nick Saban, he's back home again of sorts. He's been there, done that. The Red Elephants are ready to go. First quarter highlights, well, LSU showing that they can run the ball against this Alabama front. Russell Shepard, there's a Russell Shepard sighting, believe it or don't. He's all bowed up. And LSU with a first down. And this would lead to a field goal by Drew Elliman. 38 yards, Tigers up 3-0. So not a bad start here, Brian. LSU showed early on that they could, in fact, run the ball a little bit.
You know what, though? I know they were outside the red zone, but you still get that feeling. You're not going to beat Alabama with field goals the second time around.
Well, Alabama, like LSU, has more than one back. Eddie Lacy, you know he enjoyed coming home from Geisler and Dutchtown. Rick, he's an outstanding running back in high school, and you know he had something to prove here.
Oh, absolutely. And he provides the power, and that's Alabama football. Good zone blocking on the touchdown play, makes a good cut, powers it in the end zone.
Yeah, you want to win big games, then winning the turnover battle is key. Cyrus Jones fails to come up with this, and Jerquinic Sandoff of Hahnville High School comes up with it. So, again, turnovers, Torrance. When you turn the ball over, normally in a big game you lose.
Normally, they tell us turnovers, third down conversions, and penalties normally decide the game. And that favored LSU in this game, but
all right,
unfortunately they didn't win it.
Now here's a big run by Hill. Boy, this kid's special, but watch the idiocy on the end of the play by J.C. Copeland. This really killed LSU at this time, Torrance. You just can't have this. Personal foul on Copeland, takes a cheap shot. I don't know what he was trying to prove, but this really hurts you.
And they got hurt a couple times in this game with making big plays and get into that 1st and 25.
And then we have this, Brian.
Whoa, I still, I see it again and again, and I still can't believe it. And there's the picture I remember of Les Miles throughout that whole game, sticking a finger in his ear. I don't know what he was thinking, Kenny. I really don't know what he was thinking.
What's he thinking here, Rick? 54 yards, no way it gets there, and you're going to give up great field position in the process.
It's sort of a matter of Les being Les, or Les trying to live up to Les's reputation. That's why they faked the previous one, trying to live up to his reputation in an obvious fake situation.
Alabama takes command at halftime, 14-3. At this point, Torrance, you had to feel like they were in total control.
Well, it seemed like they were in control. Now, the one thing I do want to give LSU credit for, we talked about last week, running with one running back. They did that. They were a little bit more aggressive in their play calling. Mecklenburg did great. He was great in the 10 and under passing. His deep ball he needs to work on a little bit, but his 10 and under, he did great.
He was terrific, period. In the second half, he was special, 12 of 15, and look at the blocking up front. This young offensive line, Rick, for LSU has got a great future.
Especially the right side with two freshmen. The left side has a sophomore guard.
And
outstanding.
Then this, Brian.
Ambush, too. Didn't work. Close, but again, you know, when you see the treachery involved here, you go, this coach, he's not sure that he can beat him straight up. But that's the thought I got.
Exactly what I felt, Rick, was that he's saying to everyone watching, we can't beat him straight up. And, of course, we found out completely otherwise. LSU dominated the second half.
But what he's telling the players is, we will do anything we have to win the game.
So do you
players
like it?
love it.
You like it?
Players love it.
Yes.
You like
players,
it?
Yes.
Yes.
Players love it.
I agree with you, Rick. I think Les came out here. He's been so conservative all year. He wanted to be aggressive. Now, do I think he's a little over-aggressive? Yes, but I love the way he went into this game trying to win and not just trying to hang in there.
Turned out to be a wash because Alabama would fumble the ball away on a missed handoff between McCarron and Yeldon, so LSU got out of it. There was a big completion to Copeland, and that sets up LSU. Now watch this throw. It doesn't get any better than this, Brian.
It really does. I'll tell you what, that's a great catch, great throw, great catch. Outstanding. At this point, you think LSU is in control right now. They've got things going for them.
Now, then there's this, Rick, another, what I think, bonehead call by Les Miles and the offensive staff. Seriously? First of all, you're going for it 4th and 1. Mad Hatter again. But you're going to do it with Spencer Ware under center? Really?
That's not why he's on the team, to run quarterback sneaks.
Oh, but wait a minute.
And he
the
bobbled
players
the snap.
love that, don't
No,
they?
the players love the fact that you'll go for it and do whatever it takes to win.
Well, they were trying to think their coach.
That's a good idea, but the play was
You got a
actually- was
quarterback
wrong.
playing lights
I
out,
agree
you got a
totally.
fullback
Going
blocking
forward,
like a
right.
madman,
Right.
and you got a tailback running like a madman. So let's put Spencer Ware in there and take a direct snap. And then Alamon hooks this. But again, on 3rd down and 12, they just run the ball up the middle. They're not trying to win the game. A field goal will only get you up by 6, Brian.
Yeah, I agree totally. And go back to that just for a second. All right, let's go right here. All right, here you're not playing, you're playing prevent defense at this point, Coach. I want to hear your comment. And then all of a sudden, when they get down to the 28, then you attack. I say attack early, set the tone early. Alabama had been doing nothing for much of the second half until then.
That's correct. And
But here's the touchdown, and Jalen Mills blitzes on the play, and we find out afterwards that he really wasn't supposed to, and that exposed him.
Yep, and the inside linebacker made an error there as well. Minter made 2 errors on 2 screen passes during the game. That cost LSU.
Good defensive player, too.
Winning score, and Mark Ingram, you recognize him? Yeah, I'm sure Saints fans really appreciated that. And now Mettenberger, of course, holding the ball, but you can't blame him at this point. He does have a tendency to do that a little bit, but this guy played great. Sack, final, Crimson Tide win it, despite the fact that, as Nick Saban said afterwards, they outplayed us. But great teams find a way to win. Torrance and Alabama found a way to win this game.
And that's what happened. These guys, they outplayed Alabama. They outplayed them all game. They had more plays. They got more turnovers. They got more 3rd down conversions. I think they had less penalties. And when you look at all this, that should say success. Unfortunately, they didn't. So Alabama ended up with the win.
Rick, it boils down to the final 2 minutes of each half. Alabama does little to sustain drives during the game, but in the 2-minute offense, they scored 2 touchdowns. Ball game.
That's correct. And LSU put them in situations both times to be able to do that. Missing a long field goal that was obviously out of Alaman's range. No reason to do that. And then
give them great field position.
And missing a field goal when they were settling for a 45-yard field goal. I went back and looked at the play calls preceding both of those, and he lost. The coaching staff lost their aggressiveness in both of those situations, didn't maintain it, and put LSU in a situation that they could snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
And Brian, we can debate the onside kick forever in terms of good, bad. It turned out to be a wash anyway. So I understand to a degree. I can take some issue with it, but I really don't have a major problem with it. And as it turned out, second guessing doesn't matter because it didn't cost them. But the other moves, I really did not agree with any of the other moves we saw in this game. From faking the field goal when Alabama fully expected it, And you saw that. Why not call it off at that point? To going forward on 4th and 1 and lining up Spencer Ware at quarterback when you're moving the ball in traditional fashion, that just didn't make any sense to me in any way, shape, or form. To on 3rd and 12 at the end of the game, not even trying to make the first down. A first down wins the game. You don't even need any more points. They're out of timeouts. Make a first down, game over. Instead, let's run it up the middle and try a 40-some-odd yard field goal with a kicker who's clearly got shaky confidence.
I agree on both counts, Kenny. I didn't understand the Ware under center. If you're going to run Spencer Ware, run him in a running back position, which he's accustomed to doing, or put him in the wildcat, the straight wildcat. Yeah. Give him at least a chance to use his skill set. And then, again, Coach, I'm really curious about your thoughts on their defense in that last winning drive by Alabama. You're talking, and I agree totally. I think the key is to be aggressive at that point, and suddenly they pull off the dogs, and they get into that prevent type of defense, which I hate that word. It's a winning type of defense, supposedly, and all it does is cost you a game in a lot of cases.
Right, it gave the momentum back to Alabama. Nick Saban said something interesting after the game. On Friday, and I learned, on Friday, he meets with the quarterbacks personally, and they go over their 2-minute offense against the opponent's 2-minute defense. And his statement was, and LSU did exactly what we looked at. We had planned that, and McCarron echoed that he knew that he could take the team down the field, not so much because of what LSU was doing, even though you had some very good points about being aggressive at one time or not, but because they had done it so many times in practice, and Saban makes it so hard out on them that it's not difficult to do it in a game.
Which leads us to the current BCS standings, which really don't matter for LSU now moving forward, but things do change. Alabama stays at the top, but then you got some shuffling beneath them. Kansas State is now second and Oregon third. Why? Because Notre Dame pulled the luck of the Irish out again against a mediocre team in beating Pittsburgh in overtime after Pitt missed what should have been a gimme field goal. Georgia, who would have thought that, up to 5th, Florida 6th. LSU still getting the respect they deserve. South Carolina, Louisville, check that schedule, and Florida State completing the top 10. Who's going to play for the national championship, Torrance?
Right now, it's hard to say. But the way I see it right now, Alabama and Oregon perhaps might be in there. Those are two I'm looking at. I think that'll be a great game. Oregon they have a lot of confidence in themselves. They've been talking all this noise about the SEC. They'll get an opportunity to see what it's really like to play in the SEC.
And they're the one offense that really could maybe challenge Alabama.
Yes, and I like to see their offensive line and their receivers against a SEC defensive team. I want to see that.
And people point to last year with LSU handling Oregon easily, but it's a different year and a different team.
Yes, but same athletes out there, big, fast, strong, and aggressive.
Well, we'll see. And LSU made big plays in that game, and LSU was really special a year ago on defense. LSU's still good on defense. I don't think they are where they were last year, frankly, but when you have #1 draft picks in the NFL, that stands to reason. So we'll see. It should be fun. When we return in just a moment, we'll talk about Tulane and a wild homecoming affair. We'll also talk about high school football, our player of the week, and the prep playoffs forthcoming with analysis as we continue with Sports NOLA TV from Brewster's on Judge Perez and Chalmette on WHNO. When you lose at home, losing to #1 teams, that's not such a bad thing. Certainly nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed with. The other game, of course, was to Florida and Tim Tebow in 2009, and LSU's defense played great that night, but they had no offense in losing 13-3. And this past Saturday night, they had pretty good offense, but left some points out there. Pretty good defense, but not when you needed it. So the result is a very difficult loss. Ken Trahan, Sports NOLA TV from Brewster's in Chalmette. Come on by and check out the chef's salad, the house salad. There's the chicken strip basket. Awesome at Brewster's. When you look at Tulane, you look at a football team that's found its mojo on offense. They've played very well since Ryan Griffin has returned at quarterback. The problem is they've got to play defense too, and that's been a little bit of a problem. Homecoming, a disappointing ending. They lose 49-47, missed a 2-point conversion that could have tied it. Tulane was way down, but they came roaring back. Look at Griffin, the school record. He just continues to play brilliant football. They head to the Liberty Bowl in Memphis to play this weekend, and Brian, you watch NFL football all the time. I think Ryan Griffin's played himself into a position to possibly get a look in the NFL.
I agree totally. At least, as a free agent somewhere, somebody's going to bring him to camp. One, he's smart, intelligent, and understands the game, and they're a different team with Ryan Griffin under center.
Well, the other thing you notice in this game, I mean, the defense, obvious, Rick, they're young and just not good enough, but they still couldn't run the ball. Look, they had no running yards whatsoever.
That's what makes it amazing how Ryan has been able to do throwing the ball with no threat of a running game. That leads to all kinds of problems usually, especially in today's football. So it's been amazing what he's been able to do.
Seems to be an epidemic of teams that call the Mercedes-Benz Superdome home. They can't find a running game and they throw it all over the yard, huh?
Hey, I was just about to talk about that. Hey, they're sort of like the Saints. No running game. The only difference is the Saints have a running game, they just won't use it. That's the difference.
It was a big week for Tulane. The announcement of the stadium initiative, the Ullman Stadium, they've got 45 of the 55 million raised. Tom Benson stepping up as well as the Glazers. Brian, good news for Tulane, and having Curtis Johnson there had a lot to do with Tom Benson coming on board.
Absolutely. And Kenny, if you're 2-7, you want to be an exciting, thrilling 2-7. Give me a 49-47 game anytime if you're 2-7.
Oh, listen, their games have been very entertaining of late. I think you're right, and I think there's some promise moving forward if you can get that quarterback in there, but I think they've got a good one coming in Tanner Lee.
That's right. We've seen him several times, and he would have played when Griffin was hurt early in the year if he was on the Tulane campus. He's ideal for them, and they got to make sure they keep him.
We turn our attention to high school football, and Rick knows a lot about that. It's a special time of the year because the state playoffs are coming, and it's time to announce our sportsNOLA.com New Orleans Quarterback Club WGSO 990 AM Prep Player of the Week, and he is running back Sergio Medina of Hanville Tigers. He's a great story. Started the year as a star linebacker, moved to running back because of a need in the middle of the season, and he's just taken off. And he took off against Trahan, 40 carries, 240 yards, 4 touchdowns, a 47-44 overtime win before a standing room crowd at Trahan. And Rick, you're a former River Parish High School coach. You know what it's like in this setting in Boutte.
Oh, an incredible rivalry, easily not just one of the best in the area, but one of the best in the state. Gosh, when Hanville and Trahan get together, and it makes people special. This young man will remember this the rest of his life. He will be a folk hero along the Mississippi River right outside of Luling for the rest of his life.
Yep, Lou Valden has his team in the playoffs. And speaking of which, the state playoffs start this coming weekend. And let's take a look at the top seeds that we can find in 5A. The Rummel Raiders are the #1 seed in the state. The defending state champion Neville Tigers, #1 in 4A. The always tough Parkview Baptist Eagles are #1 in 3A. John Curtis Patriots, #1 in the nation according to Rivals in 2A. And then the defending state champion, the OCS Eagles of Washita Christian in 1A, the #1 seed again this week. You look at those top seeds, Rick. Of those top seeds, how many will win state championships in your mind?
Washita Christian and John Curtis are prohibitive favorites. Neville would be, except for Carr Cougars, who are right there with them, I believe. Parkview, it's going to be a battle, but they're certainly in good shape at 3A. But 3A is going to be a really solid classification. I think Rummel is certainly at the head of the class, not only ranking-wise, but ability-wise. West Monroe not far behind. Barb not far behind if they could stop somebody at least a couple series during the course of the game. So, but those 3, 5, 4, and 3, not nearly as prohibitive as 2A and 1A.
Torrance, I think he talked about 3 local teams that have a legitimate chance to win state championships. Edna Carr in 4A, John Curtis in 2A, Archbishop Rummel in 5A.
Well, if you look at those three schools have been around the last few years. Always bound to have an opportunity to at least play in the Superdome. And this year, why not this year as well?
Brian, same thought. I mean, obviously, we want to see local teams in the Dome. It will create crowds, create interest, and I think there's a great chance we'll have that.
I agree. And, Coach, I always wonder about you at this time of year. I know you've got to get that yearning to be back on the sideline.
Oh, I have the yearning. There's no doubt about that, but my stomach is a lot calmer.
Yeah.
I do not miss the knot on Friday.
He's smiling in the studio every Friday night. I mean, the guy's at peace. It's remarkable. He's having a great time. All right, we've got, speaking of local teams, we got a lot more local teams in the state playoffs. Let's take a look at some of the key local matchups in the first round of the state playoffs. West Jefferson Jesuit, that's a rematch of a game played just last Saturday. The same with Covington and Mandeville. How strange is that? Hanville and St. Paul's, good first round matchup in 5A. 4A, 35 and East Jefferson happened 2 years ago, and the Ron Eagles won in the first round. Shaw Holy Cross, another rematch of a game played earlier this year. Ditto in 3A. Port Allen beat McMain earlier this year. And the Mustangs get another shot. Pope John Paul II, at John Curtis. Carver South Plaquemines, another rematch, 2 district teams. And then St. Edmund at Country Day. Rick, what stands out in your mind about these games?
It is amazing how many rematches, especially from week 10. There's usually 1 or 2 every single year like that. And after having visited with Coach Kaiser and Coach Scott immediately after the pairings were made, there was a lot of angst and gnashing of teeth having to go through that. Because one of the things you like about the playoffs is that you have a chance to play somebody new and try your stuff on somebody new and do some planning for somebody new. When you're playing familiar people, it takes a little bit of that away.
All those local teams, about 20 seconds, a dark horse or two, if you will, that could be a team that could be a team to watch.
Not a dark horse, but they got to win. East Jefferson has to win. It's been a long time since they had. I'm an East Jefferson graduate, and it's time for them. And Coach Salta Famaggio, who I visited with yesterday, is busy preparing his team to do just that.
Yep. Any dark horse in your mind of these other teams we looked at?
Well, I like to see St. Paul, see what they're going to do. I know last year they got knocked out. They was ahead of the class, but I like to see what they're going to do. I had the opportunity to see them in the Superdome early this year, so I'm anticipating what they're going to do this year.
And finally, Brian Country Day gets to play at home and with portable lights. They bring in lights to play in Metairie.
Notre Dame of the South, I think.
There you go. It's all good, man. That's right. Mike McGuire, Richard Wood and Company, good luck to you as well. We'll take a time out here. When we continue, we'll talk Hornets and more as we continue with more of Sports NOLA TV from Brewster's in Chalmette on WHNO. Time now for Sports NOLA Trivia. And our trivia question of the evening, the Saints, just under 500 all time on Monday Night Football. Who did the Saints beat for their first ever win on Monday night? Was it the Los Angeles Rams, dating ourselves, the San Francisco 49ers, the New York Jets, at least it's not the Titans, and the Pittsburgh Steelers? Those are your 4 choices. Think about it. And we'll have the answer for you a little bit later on in the show. Ken Trahan, Sports NOLA TV from Brewster's on Judge Perez Drive in Chalmette. We thank Brewster's for their continuing support of Sports NOLA TV and sportsNOLA.com. The New Orleans Hornets got their season started last week at home against the San Antonio Spurs, and it was great to see them back on the floor. Final year that they'll be wearing these duds, and final year of these colors, final year of this name, and they started off with a narrow loss to the Spurs, but Brian, I was encouraged. I covered the game that night. I was encouraged by what I saw.
2 possessions, right?
Yeah.
Cost them the game, and they were right down at the end. It was a great scene, great crowd, a great way to open up the season without a win.
Well, Gravis Vasquez played like a really good point guard in this game, and his best game as a Hornet, really. Best first half by far that he's ever played. And then we saw the other elements, including Anthony Davis, Torrance. He played wonderfully, 21-7 in his debut, and it's so obvious why you have to love this kid.
Oh, a lot of upside to this kid. Glad that the Hornets was able to pick him up. We won the lottery, was able to get him. He's going to do a lot for the city. He's going to do a lot for the team. Monty Williams finally got your little help. I'm expecting more out of you this year. I think they'll do good this year.
They're a lot bigger this year. They played the Utah Jazz in their second home game, and like the first game, this one went down to the wire as well with a different outcome. They found a way to win as Vasquez scored a driving layup to win the game. And Rick, as you look at this team, one thing that's noticeable, they are a bigger, longer team with Lopez, who's over 7 feet tall, with Ryan Anderson, who's a really good player at 6'10", and Jason Smith playing really well also. He's 7 feet tall. And you got Davis, who's 6'10" and plays bigger than that. He'll be back soon. This team has a lot of length, and that's going to help.
And length cannot be overstated. It's not just height, but how much of the court do you take up? And something I'm really impressed with is that when a guy shows up and works with Coach Williams, they get better. He's a terrific coach. His staff coaches people, and they get better when they do what they're supposed to.
I like what I've seen of Darius Miller, and Al-Farouq Aminu is a much improved player, terrific athlete who's really found his way in this game. They got to get Austin Rivers going. Now, here are the scores of the game. Lose by 4 to the Spurs. It could have gone either way. Then, of course, turn that around and beat the Jazz. And then they go on the road at Chicago without Anthony Davis, and they beat the Bulls at United Center. That is an impressive win, Torrance.
Yes, that goes back. Let's go back to Monty Williams, the coaching. Excellent coach. We talked about it last year, how he played with a patched-up team for the most part, and we still don't have all our pieces now, and look at the job he's doing at the beginning.
Yep, and the Hornets will be back home as we take a look at the upcoming schedule for New Orleans. They've got the 76ers in town. That's a pretty good team, by the way, with the players they have now. at New Orleans Arena Wednesday night. Then the Charlotte Bobcats, not as good a team coming in, Brian. A chance to perhaps get out 4-1 if you can beat the Sixers at home.
You know what's impressive is they're 2-1 with essentially Anthony Davis on the sideline for 7 quarters. Yes. They went up to Chicago and beat a Bulls team, of course, without their star, but they beat a good team up there. That's impressive right there.
I agree, Rick. I think this is a team that is going to be more exciting. First of all, they're young. Anytime you're young, you got juice, you got energy, and you'll be able to play faster than they've played in recent years.
They're young, energetic, want to learn, and so that can be a prescription for success, not just this year, because when you go on the road where the home team has the greatest advantage out of all the sports in basketball, when you go up to Chicago and win, that says a lot.
That's the Hornets picture, and of course we'll be watching very closely and covering it for you here on sportsNOLAtv and at sportsNOLA.com. When we return in just a moment, we focus on the Saints. Mid-season grades are coming. Stay tuned. Get your notepad out as we continue with sportsNOLAtv from Brewster's in Chalmette. Time to answer our Sports NOLA trivia question of the evening. The Saints 15-17 all-time on Monday Night Football. Who did the Saints beat for their first ever win on Monday night? Do you remember? Do you recall? The Pittsburgh Steelers under Bum Phillips in 1984. Dirk Winston got some revenge as the Saints beat the Steelers 27-24 in the Superdome. I was there covering it at that time and remember it well. I guess I'm showing my age. Ken Trahan from sportsNOLA.com, sportsNOLAtv from Brewster's here in Chalmette. And this is our hot seat segment. Of course, we usually put Brian Allee-Walsh on the hot seat with a specific topic that we can tell him he's wrong about. And today it's a little bit different. Saints at the mid-season point, essentially. And we are going to grade where they are as we speak. So our mid-season grades, school is in session. I'm banging the gavel to get it started with Brian Allee-Walsh as we talk about the New Orleans Saints and where they're at right now. Okay, Brian, let's start first and foremost with the Saints' grades on offense.
I'm going to give them a hard-earned C+, and that is based on yards per game, rushing yards per game, 32nd rushing, 5th yards per game. You've got a balance up and down. The running game is the part that they become deficient on, and that's why they get a C+ in my book.
Rick?
Okay, this brings me back to my teaching days, and I brought a grade book. All right? That's a legal document, and you actually have to document while you're doing this, not give an opinion. The Saints offensively are a B. They're 8th in the league out of 32 teams, and when you look at a normal distribution curve, that's a B.
I like it.
I like it.
Well explained.
Well, myself, I'm going with a B-, Coach. A little bit under you, just a little bit under you, because one, I think they're holding up the team. Without them, this team will be dismantled, just terrible. And that's my reason for giving them a B. I don't think they play as well as in the past, but they are keeping the team in games.
And I would give the Saints offense a B as well. It's all about productivity. It's all about the final analysis. Nobody cares how you got there, the who's, what's, when's, why's. All they care about is what did you achieve? Well, they score points. They're near the top of the league in that department. And they pass for a lot of yards. They're near the top of the league in that department. So they've been productive enough, with the exception of one game, to give themselves a chance to win every game. Therefore, a B. Not good enough because they haven't run it good enough, and they did have the stinker in Denver and a second half in Kansas City that was unproductive, so that makes it a B. All right, it's time now to take a look at the Saints' defense. And we start with Brian Allee-Walsh with his grade on this unit, if you want to call them that.
Well, obviously I give them an F, but if I could, I would give them an A for atrocious. And obviously they're last in every meaningful category. Enough said, it's an F.
Rick?
Well, I use points against. I use points in all of these, okay? And points against, they are not the worst, believe it or don't. They're actually 28th in the league, giving up 216 points. That's what a defense is supposed to stop. That's a D. There's actually 4 teams worse than them.
George?
Well, I give an F, Coach.
You an offensive guy.
I'm going to give an F, Coach. And I'm giving the F for the simple reason you cannot give up 400 yards a game in every game. That's just, it's no balance, no nothing that's going on. Nobody just, that can win a one-on-one battle. We have nobody out there that can win a one-on-one battle on this team, and that deserves an F.
Can't rush the passer, can't cover, can't tackle. Other than that, it looks great. I give them an F as well. And again, the numbers speak for themselves. They're not last in the league in points allowed. Could very well be. Yes. If their offense wasn't scoring and having the ball for quite a bit of time, they would be. But this defense is putrid. They've been awful. No one can deny that. And the personnel is the primary reason. Let's take a look now at the Saints' special teams. And we start with Brian Allee-Walsh. Brian?
C-. And Thomas Morstead is the reason I give them the increased grade there. Return against cover and offensively return and kicks are just average at best. In addition, Garrett Hartley's missed some critical kicks that have hurt them on a couple of occasions, so I give them a C-.
Rick?
I've given them a C as well, because when you take all those factors, punting, field goals, kickoff, and the return game, they are totally average, ranking in my rates at 16, and that's right in the middle. That's a C.
Torrance?
Coach, I love the way you keep the stats and all, and you bring it all. You're doing an excellent job with that, Coach, and I'm paying attention to that. I gave him a B. Simple why I gave him a B. You know why? Because I look at the defense, and it's just, everybody's doing much better than the defense, and I gave him a B. I think Morstead, he's kicking 51 yards. He's making those punts 51 yards.
Hey,
I give him a B.
He's a Christian man, okay? He's doing a Christian thing here. I was a little bit kind, too. I gave them a B- for a couple of reasons. Number one, their punter, Thomas Morstead, is elite. Number two, their coverage teams have been overall pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. Their return game, not that productive, very ordinary. And as Brian alluded to, what really knocked their grade down was the fact that Garrett Hartley's missed a couple of key field goals, one of them that really cost them a game. And you've got to convert those, especially kicking indoors. And they haven't done so. Acceptable? Yes. Need to get better? Yes. Now we get to coaching. Very interesting here, considering the plight that the Saints have had this year. Brian?
I'll tell you what, I give them a C. Under these circumstances, I think that they've kept the ship afloat. They've kept these guys involved, playing hard for the most part every game. I think they have the benefit of playing with a veteran club. And look, any team or any franchise that's been saddled with the kind of problems they have been, I think these guys have done a great job under the circumstances, so I give them a C.
Rick?
And Brian's exactly right, but when you're giving a grade, circumstances don't count. Only results count. And you are what your record says you are. And they are 28th in the league, which is D. Not always their fault. Hey, this is supposed to be objective.
Oh, Coach, I just love it, Coach. I love it today.
He's the president of his fan club now, man.
Coach is all over. Hey, I gave him a C-. I wanted to give him that D, Coach, but to what Brian said, they went through a lot of problems and all. But I don't just give it to just the coaches. What about the front office? I like to throw them in there because they did nothing to make this defense better. They only made it worse, and I blame them. That's why they have that C-.
And I gave them a different grade than anybody. I gave them an I, as in incomplete. I don't think it's fair to assess a grade on these guys given the circumstances and given the situation that they find themselves in. Not to mention the fact that their pseudo-head coach has only had one game under his belt in Joe Vitt, albeit a game where the Saints were not very well prepared, nor do they execute very well, but he just started. As for Aaron Kromer, again, as Brian said, it's just patently unfair to judge him for the Saints' record. It is what it is, as Rick says. I agree with that. The world is all about results, but that said, I mean, come on, given these circumstances, you certainly can't hold him to blame for what has happened to the Saints. It's about players. As Jim Morrow once said, when I was the head coach of the Saints, I was an offensive idiot and a defensive genius. When I was the head coach of the Colts, I was an offensive genius and a defensive idiot. Come on, guys, it's about players. When I was with the Saints, I had the Dome Patrol. When I was in Indianapolis, I had Peyton Manning and Marshall Faulk and then Edgerrin James. It's about players, Brian. It's about players, Brian.
I agree totally, and I agree with what Torrance said about the front office. If we were to grade the front office, I would say that they were neglectful with trying to replenish that defense last year, because they're going to have to do it this year.
Yes. I'm sorry. But not only that, you go get a defensive coordinator that wants to run a 4-3, but you don't provide the players for him to execute the defense that he wants to run.
And I'm on the record with all of the administrative shortcomings. Have it in print. Go to sportsNOLA.com. Read the blogs. It's there. Plenty of blame to go around in the front of. The coaches are pedaling as fast as they can, but they're swimming up a waterfall.
Rick does a great job with breaking it down from a coach's perspective, the X's and O's, and I encourage you to read that at sportsNOLA.com. He takes a couple of days to review, study, break down plays. but I think you thoroughly enjoy that, just as you enjoy reading Brian's analysis of the games and his game stories following the games and everything else that you can possibly want about the Saints at sportsNOLA.com. Man, I'm going to bang the gavel just because I can. I usually have a chance to do that. I'm not the judge today, but I'm going to be the judge anyway.
That's why you
because
give an eye.
I'm going to send it. I'm going to send it to a timeout because we got more to talk about. We'll talk about what the Saints are doing upcoming as they take on the Eagles and beyond as we continue live from Brewster's on Judge Perez Drive. It's sportsNOLA TV. Glad you've joined us, and we are back in just a moment. Mobro.co/sportsNOLA. Movember, it's a great cause. We hope you partake. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLA TV from Brewster's here in Chalmette. And it's been another very interesting weekend in the NFL, which of course concludes with the Saints Monday night game in just a few minutes against the Philadelphia Eagles in the Superdome. Some scores from this past weekend. Of course, San Diego, the Thursday nighter, handled hapless Kansas City. And then Denver rallied past Cincinnati. Peyton Manning 3 touchdown passes. How about Baltimore doing it again? Andrew Luck, another great game, and Chuck Pagano showed up for a very emotional visit to his team. Green Bay handling Arizona. Packers in good shape. Houston took care of Buffalo, did it with defense. And we mentioned Indianapolis and the Colts beating Miami. So great stuff for Andrew Luck and company there. Detroit over Jacksonville. Chicago, look at that. I mean, Tennessee. We might have changes coming there soon. Carolina got a win over Washington. It was Tampa Bay. They've really played well since losing to the Saints, putting up 42 points. Doug Martin, a huge game. Seattle over Minnesota. They like to play at home, don't they? And then Pittsburgh rallied past the Giants on the road. A very good win for the Steelers in that one. Atlanta goes to 8-0. They beat Dallas 19-13. Of course, the Saints and the Eagles coming up tonight. Brian, as you look at those results, what really gets your attention?
Kenny, I tell you, there's a lot there. I look back at Dallas. They find ways to lose. Okay, the Cowboys do. Secondly, I think, we kind of poo-pooed the Colts being a playoff contender. You don't count them out for one of those final wild card spots. The Bears D continues to roll. And then I was surprised that the Steelers were able to come back on the Giants at home in such an emotional Sunday.
I agree. Rick?
And the Pittsburgh game stood out to me. Did you see the fake field goal?
Yeah.
Yes, Coach. And it failed, didn't it?
It failed.
But they won the game, huh?
Yeah, but
because,
it failed.
Because it's the players.
I thought about coaching.
It is about coaching.
Great.
The players to play right.
The players have to play.
That's why it takes my
Exactly.
Exactly.
Players have to play. Players have to play sometimes. Hey, I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
And the same people, I'm really impressed with Atlanta. And once again, that balance between offense, defense, and kicking game.
Yes, I like to say Atlanta is doing great. Didn't expect this team to be 8-0, but they're rolling. They're hitting on all cylinders. They can run, they can throw, they play great defense. They have a great special team. They're a very solid team. I like them. I was surprised by the Giants to give it up. I thought, after saying that, I thought they had a little bit more motivation to bring a win out, but they did go through a tough time up there, not to make an excuse for them. But they did a great job, but they end up giving it up at the end in the second half of the game. Also, the Colts. I'm very impressed with the Colts right now. And like you, Brian, I was looking at the AFC. They have an opportunity to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was impressed with Houston because they gave up 9 points. They lost Cushing, and they're still good on defense. They're still good on offense. I still think they're the best team in the AFC, and Atlanta certainly looks like the chalk in the NFC as we speak. And, of course, they're in the same division as the New Orleans Saints, who have the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's a Monday night matchup that we're looking forward to here tonight. As we look at the NFC South standings, we see that the Falcons are up at 8-0, and the Saints, of course, are at 2-5, and the division's over with. So tonight's matchup, 7:30. Okay, Brian, what do you expect? What can we look for here?
Ooh, you look at face value, you look for a high-scoring game here. Michael Vick's got his back against the wall. Andy Reid says he's his quarterback through the rest of the season now. I'll believe it when I see it. Two desperate teams, and the question is which team is more desperate. I like the Saints at home tonight.
Rick?
balls flying through the air. The Saints lead the league at 70% of their plays are called passes. The Eagles are fourth at 64%. So somewhere between 65 and 70% of the time, the ball is going to be in the air. The difference in the game is, does Andy Reid protect Michael Vick or does he turn him loose? I think right now they're going to do neither, and the Saints have a tremendous opportunity. I should pick the Eagles if I want the Saints to win with my particular record, but I think the Saints will win.
Torrance?
I think the Saints, simply because Drew Brees is playing better than Michael Vick right now, and I think he has his offense rolling a lot better than the Eagles do. Defensively, I think they're both in the same about balance, because the Eagles have a new defensive coordinator. They stunk it up last week, and I don't see them doing any better this week going against Drew Brees.
It sounds to me like we all agree it's going to be a long game unless they complete a lot of passes. It's going to be a very long game. So
Yeah, I think we can count on a late night in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. I'm going to go with the Saints too. I think at home, with the extra day to prepare, things settling in under Joe Vitt, and against a team that frankly is disappointing and not very good, I think they'll win the game at home. These are two teams that aren't very good, frankly. The Eagles' offensive line has really struggled. They have had a tough time. Michael Vick deserves some of the criticism. He's been not real good with the ball and security and his decision-making, but their offensive line hasn't helped much. And their high-priced defensive backs haven't played like it either on the defensive side for the Eagles. And Andy Reid is in trouble. That's why he's sticking with Michael Vick, because he needs results now. He can't look to the future because he won't be part of it. He's been in Philadelphia for quite some time, and he's a very good football coach, but nothing lasts forever. As for the Saints, there's one other topic to talk about, and that is the story regarding Sean Payton, an avoided contract. Brian, I know you're all over it. What do you make of this situation? What do you think comes of this?
a couple things strike me as one, that the timing of this story to break now. This has been an ongoing story. Okay, that's one thing. And secondly, I think Payton does want to come back. He's made it clear. He talked to Jay Glazer, and he's made it clear that he'd like to be back here. It'll be interesting to see what develops, especially if he remains suspended, Kenny, because you can't have any kind of dealings with each other while you're suspended from the club. So that doesn't mean that agents and front office people can't talk, but I suspect that Sean will be back.
Rick?
Yeah, I was very suspicious of the timing. It's another one of those. When did they know? Who knew, and when did they know it? This is highly unusual.
And why now? Yeah.
And is this why that they never named an interim head coach? Are they trying to make sure they curry favor with Sean Payton? They didn't name anybody. None of these other guys have been named head coaches. Sean Payton and all their media stuff is listed as the head coach. Is that why?
Well, Coach,
conspiracy.
Well, Coach, I'm gonna go back to one of your things. We're in it right now.
Yeah.
So regardless of how it came up or why it came up or why it's popping out now, we're in it right now. Is he gonna come back or will he? I say yes, because of one thing, Drew Brees. Do you think everybody keeps saying he wants to go to the Cowboys? That might be a logical choice, but no, you do not leave a Drew Brees behind. Not just a Pro Bowl quarterback, but hopefully will be a Hall of Famer one day. And I don't think you leave that type of quarterback behind.
Well, I think it's not just Drew Brees. I think it's Tom Benson. I think he's very, very loyal to Tom Benson and deeply appreciates the reciprocation that he's received. Mr. Benson is stuck by Sean Payton in this very difficult time, and I think that's part of it too, Brian.
Kenny, if they could combine the Cowboys defense and the Saints offense, that's the team I'd like to coach.
You have yourself something there.
He can come back for that job.
Not a bad thought.
Absolutely.
But you can never underestimate the pull, the family situation in Dallas, the fact that he wanted to live there.
And Kenny, don't ever disregard this too.
Sure.
If Jerry Jones throws out that Cowboy cash, money talks.
Well, it'll be all about cash, because definitely they won't have a Drew Brees.
Yep.
And believe me, that is, you ask any coach,
Yeah.
you're like a quarterback, a solid quarterback.
In that league, that's what it's all about.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Just another Days of Our Lives saga to play out in this unusual season from, I don't know, hell. We'll take a time out, back in just a moment as we continue from Brewster's on sportsNOLAtv. Rick Gaille, thank you, my friend. Back in a moment.
This is great. Love it.
Movember is Movember. For the entire month of November, it's sportsNOLATV's crew growing mustaches in the name of men's health. The brave Mobros are seeking sponsorship to support their efforts. Please help support the cause. Visit mobro.co/sportsNOLA to make a donation. Any funds raised support prostate cancer and testicular cancer initiatives. And let's check in with the progress. Oh boy, there we go. There's something above that lip. I'm not sure what I'd call it, but there's something there. We're getting somewhere. I used to be able to grow those things. Not happening anymore. What I like to grow is all the choices at Brewster's here at 8751 West Judge Perez Drive, because the menu is outstanding. The people are nice. We thoroughly enjoy being here, and we thank Brewster's for their continuing support. Ken Trahan with you, sportsNOLAtv. And speaking of Brewster's, it's great to welcome to the show the owner of Brewster's, Jessica Reeb. Jessica, great to have you with us.
Hello.
Jessica, tell me about one or two of your favorite menu items. If you had to recommend anything to someone that's never been here before, what would it be?
Our crowd favorite, the thing that's been our biggest seller the whole time, 25 years we've been open, is the Brewster burger. It's a 10-ounce burger on your choice of one of our 4 buns with one of our delicious sides. We have baked potatoes, salads, fries, all kinds of stuff like that. My personal favorite is actually the tuna and the salmon, which the salmon's a new item. I get that pretty much every day. You can ask anyone who works here, with the sweet potato fries.
And
So
I'll
those
vouch
are-
for both.
Well, there you
of
go.
them.
Listen, I mean, what I like there is she went health
Oh,
versus heart attack on a plate. I like it. It was good. So,
But
but
guess
and
what?
both very good, I might add. Okay, Jessica, we got about a minute left. We're going to let you turn it around. You can ask us a question. Go right ahead.
Okay, what do y'all think is going to happen in the game tonight? Who do you think is going to win? And give me a score.
All right, what about a score, Brian?
Let's see, I'll go 31-24 Saints, and I think it's going to be a relatively high-scoring game. Defense is going to be thrown out the door in both teams, and it could be a long game. Bring your sleeping bag. It could be a long night.
Torrance?
If you're looking for an LSU-Alabama game with defense, wrong game. It's going to be a high-scoring game, 35-31. I think the Saints will pull it out.
I think we're all in the same range here. I like the Saints to win the game 34-27. And again, the ability to score will be obvious on both sides, and both teams will throw, and it will last long, as Brian said. Brian, Torrance, always a pleasure, gentlemen. Keep up
Thank
the
you,
great
sir.
work.
Always a
Jessica,
pleasure.
great to meet you. Thanks for being here with us, and thanks for having us here.
Thanks for coming.
It's our pleasure. And for our entire crew, including Andrew and Adam and Lenny and Bob and everyone, thank you for being with us. Be a good sport, and God bless you one and all. We are rounding third and heading home. So long.